It's sunny and warm, and the locals are sipping tea next to a modern Art Deco building shaped like an airplane. Miami Beach? No. A train from the 1930s chugs from the sea to the capital, 2,400 meters high through stunning mountain beauty. Switzerland? Wrong. A small country that won its existence by defeating a nation 20 times its size. A proud, stubborn group of warriors who act like winners. A land half Muslim and half Christian, where religious conflict is no part of the national psyche.
You find a mosque here and a church here, one goes to his mosque, one goes to his, and nothing happened.
Where could it be? Africa, that's where. Eritrea, to be specific. In the 1930s, Mussolini tried to turn Eritrea's capital, Asmara, into an African Rome.
They called it Piccola Roma, which is Little Rome.
And adorned it with playful, modern architecture.
Asmara for me is almost like an urban utopia.
It's serving as a symbol of Eritrean know-how, that we inherited over the years.
From Asmara to the Red Sea, a ride on the train reveals a stunning landscape of geography and people.
Eritrea has 9 ethnic groups and 9 languages.
We are not like the other Africans. We are Semitic, so we have a lot of Arabic, Hebrew, and Christianity.
Nomads in some of the hottest desert on earth.
It's very hot in this area. Therefore, they migrate to the place where they can find water.
Others in isolated mountaintop villages.
It takes nearly 4 and 5 hours to drive to the village.
Christian and Muslim. Side by side. In a land where man first developed.
It goes back to the Ark of Covenant, with the Queen of Sheba, Solomon, the Old Testament.
A land of both the ancient and the modern.
It maintained both the modern and at the same time the permanent value of the society.
5.5 million people of different faiths, different ethnic groups, from vastly different geographies.
Throughout the history of this country, no inborn major fights have been seen between the regions and the religions.
What holds them together? It is their nationhood.
You can speak a different language and live in one part of the country, and another one can live in another part of the country, but they can count their ancestry back to the same ancestor.
I think our history has been a history of struggle. It took us a long time to free our country.
A people who built schools and hospitals in the trenches.
And we were behind the enemy lines. We were printing our books.
A pharmaceutical factory was established out there.
Rise to nationhood.
But after a long bloody struggle, we got our independence in 1991. Now we are an independent country.
Now, a land of fighters is fighting for its survival under a military standoff with Ethiopia.
This is a no war, no peace situation that can tip either way.
They won last time. But if there's a next time, will Eritrea survive as a nation? Every Sunday night in this city, many of the townspeople take to a broad avenue and go for a walk. They walk in a beautiful climate, past striking buildings, past churches and mosques. They are walking through a city that was once a radical experiment in utopian architecture and fascism, and is today unique in all the world. The locals call the walk the Passaggero. It is pleasant and calm. And everything that is pleasant about the Passaggero could be gone tomorrow. These people live in a city called Asmara, capital of a country called Eritrea, a nation that stands on the brink between war and peace. It could go either way. Each Passaggero could be its last. But then, Eritreans are used to fighting the odds. Eritrea sits on a strategic choke point in the corner of the Horn of Africa. It guards the route from the Middle East to Africa and access to the Mediterranean. It's always been an attractive spot for trade and invasion. Many people and cultures have passed through this land down the millennia. Each left something that stuck.
This is a crossroads, and people coming through the sea, from across the Red Sea, people coming from across the western borders, from Sudan, people coming from what is present-day Ethiopia, and so on. In the south, you find the similarities between the peoples of Eritrea and what is present-day Ethiopia, the similarities between the Sudanese and the Eritreans, and the similarities between the Arabs and the Eritreans from this side. So it's always been a very interesting blend of cultures and ethnic origins.
This is the story of Eritrea, a little nation that would be adorned by the Axis, annexed by its neighbor, and would fight an extraordinary 30-year war for independence, and, against all odds, win. As a nation, it would prove innovative in health and education, and struggle to preserve its culture. But Eritrea as we know it began when an Italian company bought a swath of land from a local sultan near Massawa on the Red Sea coast. The Italian government bought up more and more land, and on January 1st, 1890, Italy's King Umberto I declared Eritrea a colony of Italy. Its capital, Massawa. Massawa has long been an important port for goods from around the world. It is steeped in Islamic history, as its architecture reveals. And it is hot and humid. An American visitor once wrote, "Massawa combined, in one spot, the highest temperatures and the highest humidities known anywhere. The next stop beyond Massawa was Hades. But not for the Italians. For them, the next spot would be a climate more Roman and hospitable, 50 kilometers west and 2.5 kilometers higher in altitude. A highland village called Asmara. It was actually 4 villages connected by a road and a church. But Asmara would forever be changed by events taking place back in Rome. In 1921, Benito Mussolini and the Fascist Party seized power in Italy. Mussolini only thought big. For him, that meant nothing less than a return to the days of the Roman Empire. He would start that empire in Africa, and he would build its new Rome in Asmara. The buildup was on. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, Italians flocked to Asmara and started to build. In 1995, British architect Edward Denison took a tour through Africa and happened upon a place he didn't know existed.
It wasn't until I got to Eritrea that I actually felt that I'd really reached the place that I wanted to see in the whole continent of Africa, and this place was just extraordinary to me, that such a rich heritage and background in my field wasn't known about by the rest of the world, which seemed strange.
But it was Eritrea's capital, Asmara, and its quirky modern design that particularly inspired the architectural side of Edward Denison. What Denison would uncover in Asmara was the amazing story of how the new Rome would rise.
Asmara for me is almost like an urban utopia. As a built environment, the scale is almost perfect. For me, it creates an environment which is incredibly safe, incredibly pleasurable to walk around. And certainly for African countries, I think a lot of people who don't know Africa well perceive African cities to be quite hostile. But Asmara breaks all those trends. It's phenomenally peaceful. To be able to walk around Asmara is one of the distinct pleasures.
In the 1920s, the pleasure was all Mussolini's. While Italians enjoyed the climate in cafes, war planning went on inside these distinct buildings. This style of building happened on purpose. The new Roman Empire of the future would require the look of the future. Whether you call it Art Deco, modernist, or rationalist, it is, above all, utopian. All of this piqued Edward Denison's interest. These sweeping buildings were rooted in the rise of fascism. But how? The original architectural drawings had long ago been stashed away in Eritrean archives, forgotten. So Denison and his wife Guan Yu Wen did some detective work.
So we spent the next 4 or 5 months, almost every day, researching through these archives, around 20,000 files, researching every document from about 1936 to 1974.
And there was a lot of art studios. Yeah, it's probably the best renovated building last night.
What Denison was uncovering were the secrets behind the construction of Mussolini's new Rome, and what he would discover